is up, everybody? So, just wanted to put out a real quick Valkyr video. Um, so, while I just put out a recent mag video and said mag is my favorite frame, which is true, I actually really like Valkyr. Which might be a little surprising for people, given that I tend to not like boring frames. Like a Naros, I tend to like frames that have like some more interesting interactions. And Valkyr might not fit that bill at first glance. Because a lot of people, when they think of Valkyr, they just think War Cry. She's War Cry simulator. There's nothing good about this frame besides War Cry. And, I just don't think that's really true. So as you can see here, I'm using a build that uses neither War Cry nor Hysteria, but instead I'm using her 3 augment, which is Prolonged Paralysis. And I just wanted to kind of show it in action a little bit, and then I wanted to talk about a few different Valkyr builds. So there's Prolonged Paralysis. I also run, several other builds on Valkyr. Of course, there's, your typical just standard like melee build, which would be Umbrals and Eternal War. That's pretty standard stuff. I do, sometimes it's fun to run the kind of perma Hysteria build. So I'll be going over 2 variants of this Prolonged Paralysis build, as well as 1 Hysteria build. So, just kind of showing it in action. This thing has like really funny amounts of CC. So as you can see, enemies just get slurped in. I mean, you're basically Valvin. Now, one weapon that I really like with this build is the Pennant. And why is that? So you see how fast I'm attacking with this thing? Right? So I'm not really caring about life support here. Let's see how fast I'm attacking with this. I don't think I have any attack speed mod. I think I might have 1 attack speed mod on this weapon right now. And all this attack speed is purely coming from Pennant's passive. So I think Pennant is it's actually one of my favorite weapons in the game. Just because it's actually like I think it's one of the only weapons where you actually can care about normal attacks and heavy attacks, which is pretty cool. So I think we're gonna have some guy show up now. So I'm just gonna prep up a nice juicy heavy for this guy. Oh, it's the fake Valkyr. Alright, anyways, so this is kind of the build in action. Can get out of here. Now we're back in the simulacrum. Kind of go over what the build I was running. We can also go over a couple other Valkyr builds. So the build that I was using in that particular gameplay footage was this Prolonged Paralysis build. So it's basically a shield gating build for Valkyr. As you know, one of the big issues with any tank that's trying to soak damage through their health, it's always a problem because eventually enemies will just do so much damage that you will get one shot. Whereas a shield-based build is just not susceptible to that because shields are effectively infinite mitigation as long as you can keep generating shields. So that's the main reason why I'm running Pillage on this build. So sometimes it's nice on Pillage to have high range and low duration because the armor strip on Pillage is definitely nice with this build, and it also kind of naturally synergizes because I have high strength. But the main reason I want this is because of the shield regeneration. I'm not running, so for this particular build, I'm not running Brief Respite, mostly because I just needed the extra capacity. I could Forma this one more time, but the builds that I usually run on Valkyr, I really couldn't Forma this. I can't really Forma my Valkyr anymore without messing up one of my builds. So like I said, I do really like Valkyr. I play her quite a bit. She has a multiple Umbro Forma. Her claws also have one. So I couldn't really afford to Forma another slot, so I'm running Steel Charge instead of Brief Respite, and I'm running Pillage. So Prolonged Paralysis, which I'm sure most people never touch or know that this even exists, makes your 3, which is your stun, pull enemies towards Valkyr, and the stun duration is increased. Now, the interesting thing is that the duration of this ability actually scales with your strength, not with duration. So you can have a ton of strength and a ton of range, and kind of efficiency to taste, and it synergizes extremely well with Pillage. This is effectively the build that I would run on Hildren. Swap in redirection for rolling guard, and I'm pretty sure this is just my Hildren build. So it's sometimes Pillage is a really unique ability where it has an effective range that scales off of both range and duration, because range will set the initial radius of the ring, and your duration will set how long it expands and then contracts back towards you. In addition, you can tap Pillage again while it's expanding to make it instantly come back. So I sometimes, if I'm really worried about the shield gating component of Pillage and not so much the armor strip component, it's kind of nice to have a low duration, because then hey, if I activate this after my shields get broken, I know I'm going to get shields back before my shield gating is down. So hopefully that makes sense. But I think Pillage it's honestly one of the best helmet abilities. Like, I think in general, you can make nearly any frame a shield gate frame by using Pillage, especially because it has a really useful mechanic even if you're not building strength, which is the shield regen, and it scales off of duration and range. It's not too expensive, like 50 energy is not too bad. You don't really need a ton of efficiency to use this. And if you do naturally build strength, awesome, now you're stripping armor. So I think Pillage is honestly a top tier helmet ability that gets, for some reason, overlooked, I think, compared to like Roar or Eclipse, which frankly I don't really find those abilities too interesting. So, I mean, this build is pretty straightforward. A lot of range, a lot of strength. The augment, I'm using this rank of fleeting expertise. So, okay. So this is a little mathy. So this is 50% efficiency, 50% duration. So let's just look at our pillage here. So with a 10 cost, so a down-ranked fleeting, I'm at 52 energy, but 0.45 duration. So it'll expand out for about a half a second. If I go up here, it's only saving me less than 5 energy per cast, but it cuts the duration that it expands almost in half, right? So in this case, it's kind of worth it just to run fleeting here, or a lower rank fleeting, because that's one thing with efficiency and duration, especially when you're using fleeting expertise. Don't just like blindly throw stuff onto your build, right? Like, and you really, really want to have a max rank and an unranked or a lower rank version of fleeting expertise to really fine tune your builds. So we already kind of saw this in action. So I can just kind of show it again. So you go over here, you do this, boom. Everything is grouped up so nicely, ever so nicely for your pennant. And your pennant's just going to kill everything. It might take one more, or a few ticks of bleeds. Oh, it's so nice though. And they're CC'd for a crazy long amount of time. Now you see how fast I'm attacking with Pennant? So Pennant has, like I said, this is with like basically no extra attack speed, right? So Pennant has a really nice passive where when you get kills with heavy attacks, it increases your attack speed, and that doesn't really have a cap. So you can get some insane attack speed out of the Pennant. I think I have a quickening on here. Oh, sorry, my Riven has attack speed. So my Riven is like okay. It's honestly not like super awesome. Um, you really don't need a Riven for the pennant, honestly. So there's a couple builds that you can go on the pennant. So this is like a pure slash build, right? I have all, crit damage, damage. I'm even running dispatch overdrive for like more movement speed because honestly, you don't really need more damage. Because, I've talked about this before, but slash damage scales off your base damage, crit damage. So with this weapon, with this particular build where I'm focusing almost entirely on heavy attacks, I don't really care about elemental damage on my weapon. I don't have viral on here or anything, right? I know this is going to proc slash when I heavy attack, and that's all I care about. So this is a more standard heavy attack build. You can also run something like this or some variants of this. So this is with true punishment. So one thing that's really nice with this is running Zenuric, because one thing in Zenuric is a Inner Might, which you basically get 60% free heavy attack efficiency on top of all the energy regen and utility in Zenuric. So for heavy attack builds, you're really going to want to run this. It's really nice. Because even if you're just running Corrupt Charge, if you're spamming heavy attacks, Corrupt Charge doesn't just set your combo at 30 all the time. The way that Corrupt Charge works is that you do consume your combo counter when you use heavy attacks, and then it regens back up to 30. So without that heavy attack efficiency from Zenuric, you can very often be losing the effectiveness of Corrupt Charge, especially with a fast heavy attack weapon like the Pennant. So, hopefully that kind of covers why I like the Pennant with these particular Valkyr builds, because I don't have the stats to support running War Cry with Eternal War. And if you're not running Eternal War, there's really no point in using War Cry because it has such a short base duration. So you pretty much have to run Eternal War. So this is my prolonged paralysis build. So just as a little bonus, I'm going to throw in some of the other Valkyr builds that I use. I think this one is probably the most effective, and if I was going to go into like a long survival or something, this is probably the one I would take, just because it does have that shield regen. It's got a ton of CC. I've been really liking the Epitaph. I really like this weapon, both for a kind of hemorrhage build focused on the charged shot, but also just for the status. It's a really nice status application weapon. I think it's really fantastic. Has a huge area with primed fulmination, very high status chance. You get a lot of viral procs off of this. So yeah, I think Epitaph it's honestly a contender for the new core. I think it is nearly as good as the Kuva new core. The Kuva new core does have the kind of unique property where it can have so many status effects. So I think in terms of min-maxing, getting the most possible damage when you're using condition overload, I do think that the Kuva Nucor is probably still better. But it's nice to have some other secondary that can at least compete with it a little bit, right? Okay, so another thing that I was messing around, similar build using Prolonged Paralysis, was a Gloom build. And so Gloom is the ability off of Sevagoth. So here I do have Arcane Strike, but not really super necessary. I just didn't really know what to throw in here. I guess I could actually Guardian might be a better option for this build. So pretty similar. Now, once again, I was a little constrained by the polarities that I'm running on my Valkyr. So that's why obviously I'd way rather have this be Umbral Vitality. That would be much better. But with the polarities that I had, this is kind of what I was forced into. So the efficiency and duration aren't too high, but I didn't find maintaining Gloom to be too bad. And that is if you're running Energize and if you're getting consistent kills to reset, regen your energy through Energize. If you're not, if you're not getting consistent kills or you don't have Energize, you can run things like you could run a heavy attack Zaw with the Exodia, Arcane that regens energy. You could run. Actually, never mind. That wouldn't work because that's energy over time, and you're running a channeled ability. That's the problem with channeled abilities is that a lot of the ways to regen energy just don't work anymore. So unfortunately, Energize is kind of your only way to utilize this. But Sevagoth is more of like a late game frame. I would say you really need to have a lot of things to make Sevagoth work. So if you have a second Sevagoth, you probably have Energize. And if you don't, I'm sorry. Prime Sure-Footed, it's amazing. This build, I could afford to have a little bit less. I had a little more flexibility in my capacity, so I was running Swift Momentum just for the heavy attack wind-up speed. I like that. It feels nice. And then, very close to that 200% strength, which caps out the slow on Gloom. And then, actually, I guess I could run Growing Power here. Sorry, I think Gloom scales up to 250%. So I could actually throw in Growing Power, and I'd be pretty close to that cap. So, yep, some efficiency. I think strength is probably the most important thing here for maxing out your Gloom, and it also affects your duration on your Paralysis. And then I did have to sacrifice a lot of range compared to this build, just because it's really hard to build overextended and enough range. Or sorry, it's hard to incorporate overextended in this build because you want to build so much strength. So I can just show this as well. So let me just get some enemies out over here. Another thing, you can run Death Cube Prime. So I'm going to get my Gloom up. So, it has a pretty nice range. And it doesn't, yes, it has an energy cost, but you also have to realize that your 3 costs like nearly no energy, right? Like your 3 is basically free. And now you can see these guys get CC'd for a really, really, really long time because Gloom slows down the animation for recovering from all this CC pretty dramatically. So this was pretty fun. The only thing was it didn't synergize very well with shield gating, so that's why I did include Vitality, Arcane Guardian. I was messing around with this build a lot the past couple days, trying to like tweak it a bit. This is what I settled on. I don't think this is the best Valkyr build, but I do think it was pretty nifty. And then kind of a more melee-friendly Valkyr build that I run. Like this is pretty classic, Hunter Adrenaline, so I don't have to care about efficiency. I do like Fire Blast or Pillage or kind of whatever. You don't really use a lot of energy consumption in this build, so you can kind of just throw any helmet thing on here that you can you would want to use. I do like running triple umbral on Valkyr. So yeah, that's one nice thing. And then there's also her permanent Hysteria build. I run this just for the combo duration, and then of course, I'm sorry. So I hate when you switch your. Okay, let me do this then. So this I was actually also running pillage on. That's why my mod got a little messed up here. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So Valkyr's claws. So Valkyr's claws can do a lot of damage. I go a pure, very heavy crit focused corrosive build. Now, if I'm going to use Valkyr's claws, I definitely want to use Helios with a Deconstructor Prime with all of the Glad mods. All right, so it'll give you even more crit because they have so much base crit. Now, there's some things in this build. So one, like, you don't really care about range. It's much more about your Hysteria. So you really want maximum efficiency. And so in this case, I don't need the shield strip on Pillage, but I'm running Pillage for the armor strip because Valkyr's claws don't have guaranteed slash procs, and they also don't have some type of damage adaptation like Chromatic Blade on Excalibur or Baruch's Augment. Those adapt. Those give you some ability to change the element of your exalted weapon on those frames, which gives them a little more, and they also have more status chance. Whereas Valkyr's claws basically have no status chance; they just have raw damage. So yeah, I do think you need to run some type of armor strip on Valkyr to make her claws really effective. Also, I have so much attack speed that I didn't include Arcane Strike. I actually went for Arcane Fury instead because you can't use Condition Overload on her claws, so it actually is kind of worth it to get the extra base damage on Arcane Fury since you already have so much attack speed and you're not worried about stacking too much with Condition Overload. Of course, Arcane Energize, although it's not really super necessary for this build, it is definitely nice though. And then, so let me just show this. This I'm using more just her talons. And then you're also going to want to run Naramon. So her claws will have their own combo counter. So definitely going to want to run Naramon. Let me just get some fresh guys out here. Now, another thing that's super nice. So with this build, now I already said Pillage can scale off duration and range. So here, Pillage will go out pretty far because of my duration. Okay, even though my range is really low, I have a lot of duration. However, most CC or grouping abilities are based off of range, right? But I just said I dumpstered my range on this build. Okay, well, in comes Magus Anomaly. So what is Magus Anomaly? That is an operator arcane where whenever you transference, you will pull in enemies within 30 meters. So this is from Vox Solaris. It's super, super nice on a lot of builds. So, alright, let me just get into Hysteria. Gonna activate War Cry. And so, okay. Yeah, I forgot that this isn't Steel Path. On Steel Path, enemies do not die quite that fast. So those were 180 heavy gunners. I know it didn't really look like it. But, so, alright, this is kind of hard to showcase not on Steel Path. But, anyways, so another funny thing is her stun can be used to proc ground finishers on enemies. And that's a lot of damage, right? And I don't even have my gladiator set stacked up, right? So that was a ton of damage. And I see a ton of people saying that, this goes back to when I was saying, oh, like people just people just associate Valkyr only with her War Cry. They don't really, use her other abilities or anything. And I see so many people saying, "Oh, Paralysis is useless" or whatever. But the thing is that Paralysis can proc ground finishers. And I don't know if you know, but the ground, so finishers have like a multiplier, and it depends on the weapon, like what the multiplier is. So I'm just trying to get a 12 stack combo counter here, just for the most meme of damage. But Valkyr's claws have a 240% multiplier on ground finishers. Okay, so that's a lot of damage. That will one shot. So I was running this build on Steel Path yesterday, and that will straight up one shot like anything on Steel Path, because finishers do like true damage, right? So here these claws are looking a little stronger than they kind of actually are. I mean, these were 180 heavy gunners. So like, just think, in your normal missions, how often are you running into 180 heavy gunners outside of Steel Path? Pretty much never, right? So this build is going to shred through like anything. You're totally immune. Like people who run an Naros, it's like, why run an Naros when you could just be a cat? But I don't know. Valkyrie is still pretty unpopular. So I would definitely give Valkyr a shot. I think some of the other companions I would run. So Helios, if you're gonna run your claws, Death Cube, if you feel like you need energy. You can also run the Panzer Volpaphyla for viral application. You can also apply viral through the Epitaph, like I said, very very nice status weapon. It does have an explosion though, so if you're not running Prime Sure-Footed, then it might not be quite as good for you. And yeah, so Prolonged Paralysis can be really fun. Gloom can be pretty fun with Prolonged Paralysis. Other subsumes I like on her. Pillage is really nice. Fire Blast has great armor strip too. So yeah, give Valkyrie a try. I think she's way more fun than people really give her credit for. I actually think she has a pretty good range of build diversity. And frankly, just between us, I actually really like her rip line too. So for just doing like quick missions, I actually run a build with Firewalker and Ripline, and she can be really, really, really fast. So give the cat a shot. And for all the people who ask for reworks for her constantly, I don't really think she needs a rework. I think she could use a little bit of buffs here and there, but I don't think she needs a full-on rework. So hopefully this gives you some ideas on Valkyr, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks for watching.